Hello everybody, this is Huda Zariwala reporting to you from Maharaja Agrasen Hospital in West Punjabi Bagh in New Delhi. Today is the 12th day of my admission in this hospital. For those not aware, I've been diagnosed positive for the novel coronavirus or the COVID-19. I am essentially making this video to give you a little bit information on the treatment that I was administered in the hospital, and also to tell you about my experience with the interaction with the doctors, the nurses, the other hospital staff, and the management and administration part of the hospital itself. And also, I'll tell you a little bit about the hospital hacks. God forbid, if any one of you or your loved ones will be, admitted in the hospital. God forbid it ever comes to that, but you know, let's just always hope for the best and be prepared for the worst, I guess. So here goes. For an entire week, they had given me a very heavy dose of antibiotics. These are essentially medicines that you give for the treatment of malaria. But then, since there is no standard treatment available for COVID-19 as of now, I guess this is what they are giving in all the other places and different hospitals as well. So the first one was the ever so popular hydroxychloroquine sulfate tablets, IP 400 mg, by the name of HQTOR 400. Then they had given me an anti-flu by the name of oseltamivir capsules, IP 75 mg, azithromycin tablets 500 mg by the name of Azicol 500, multivitamin, multi-mineral capsules with chlorine by the name of Henzovit capsules. They had given me vitamin C chewable tablets by the name of TAMC, TAMCEE. Pandy, which is essentially pantoprazole gastro-resistance, and domperidone prolonged release capsules, IP. That was a tongue twister. For the cough, they had given me Benadryl syrup, but I guess any other standard dry cough syrup would do. For the shortness of breathing and the breathlessness that I was facing initially, which thank God has significantly reduced now, I was asked to take 2 puffs thrice daily from this inhaler. The one that I have is called Duolin. It is nothing but the ipratropium bromide levosalbutamol inhaler. Wow, that was a difficult name. And apart from that, they had given me the following injections and administered IV drips. The names are Omnivan, which is a nasal drop. Then they had given me an injection by the name of Optineuron, which is nothing but vitamin B12. Another injection by the name of Lupinox 0.6 ml 60 mg, which is a blood thinner, I believe. Another injection by the name of Ceftriaxone 2 gm, Ceftrion, which is also an antibiotic. An injection by the name of Pretozole 40 mg, which is basically an antacid for the acidity. So because they were giving me the antacid via IV, they had asked me to not consume the Pandy, but now since these medications have stopped, I am taking Pandy because of few other complications that I've developed, which is excessive diarrhea, nausea, I've been vomiting, puking a lot, a very bad case of UTI, which is a very difficult condition to go through as of now, and a little bit of dizziness and slight headache, which is why the prolonged stay in the hospital. But since there is no other standard treatment, I guess these are the medications that have been helpful so far. Apart from that, I guess the most important thing that you can do, God forbid, if you're ever going through a coronavirus or COVID-19 kind of situation, is to prime your immune system, because let's understand, there is absolutely no comparison to the body's natural immune system. None of these medicines will be as effective as your own body creating those required and much needed antibodies to fight off the virus itself. And from my understanding of it, the virus, I've been told, stays in your throat area itself before it actually goes all the way in your in your lungs, causing pneumonia and other complications. So I guess the best way to ward off the negative symptoms of the virus is to fight it while it's still in your throat. Now you can do a couple of things which the doctors and nurses have advised me. Number one that you can do is a very healthy intake of fruits, green leafy vegetables, especially the fruits with vitamin C and that boost your immune system, the ones that have citrus in it. That would be really helpful. Apart from that, what you can do is carry, maybe now is a good time to invest in buying few vitamins. The one I have is vitamin D3, then vitamin C tablets, and also zinc tablets. These are all supposed to be helping in boosting up your immune system. So priming your immune system is the key. It's literally the key to fighting off the virus. And secondly is to reduce the viral load itself. So how you can do is a couple of methods that I have picked up online and also been advised by the doctors is to daily inhale steam. Now you can do that by 2-3 methods. The first and probably the most effective would be to invest in an a steam inhaler that really helps the process. Maybe you can make one at home. So what you do is boil some water, maybe add a dollop of Vicks, cover your head and take that steam. I've been told that's really helpful. Apart from that, practice breathing exercises. Now I'll tell you a little bit about that, but before I go there, one more thing that you can do is buy nasal drops. So any virus that is going to try and enter through your nasal cavity can be fought off. You can either do that by creating your own nasal saline solution. So one way of doing that is you get these bottles, depending on where you're staying and how you can manage to do that. You can create your own nasal solution. So what you can do is maybe boil some hot water, cool it down, and in that bottle add a few drops of betadine solution and maybe a half a teaspoon of sodium bicarbonate, half a teaspoon of common salt, which is your regular table salt. Mix all of that, shake the bottle, and so what you do is stand in front of the sink and kind of administer those nasal drops through your nostrils. That is going to help fight off the virus. Apart from that, what you can do is, blow bubbles in a glass. So take water in a container or glass or cup or mug or anything. Take a straw, it could be any straw, doesn't matter. Blow bubbles in it. So this is going to essentially help you with the breathing exercises, and a good idea and a good time to do that is while you're healthy, because that is going to really boost up your breathing capability, and trust me, it helps. Another way you can do that is maybe buy some balloons if you already have them at home, blow into the balloon itself. So what you can do is take a deep breath and then exhale all the way out while you're blowing the balloon, like so. Do that, hold on, take another deep breath, blow again. You can do that in thrice with each balloon. That is supposed to be really helpful. It has this was a hack that I saw in one of the videos by a doctor, and I think this is going to be really helpful. And apart from that, what you have to do is gargle. A very important step, gargle with warm salty water, or maybe gargle with betadine itself. That is going to really help with your immune system. Breathing exercises focus more on the exhalation part itself. Like whenever you're breathing out, make sure you breathe out completely, hold on for a few seconds, then a deep breath in, inhale, and then exhale. You can probably check out other breathing exercises on YouTube itself. If you guys are familiar with yoga, yoga has a lot of these breathing exercises, which I believe now is the time to really do all of that. Another important thing that I was told is the sleeping position itself. So if you're all like me who likes to sleep on their back or on the sides, sleeping on head down is what is going to be really helpful. It's called the prone position. So what you can do is since it is not easy for all of us to sleep head down, what you can do is, like, this is a pillow. Instead of keeping the pillow like this, maybe you can keep it all the way vertical. And so, like, imagine this is the head of your body, so your head down and the rest of the body behind, like so. Sleeping in that position helps, speaking from personal experience. The reason for that is most of your air cavity is at the on the back side. I'm not going to be very good with the medical terminology here, but our breathing sacs are centered around the back of your body. So if you're going to be sleeping from keeping your head straight on the pillow, that is going to be difficult for the breathing process itself. And this is why sleeping face down is recommended, especially to fight off the virus. And apart from that, just remember, do not panic no matter what. Again, this is something I speak from personal experience. I had panicked a lot. I was really scared initially. That clearly must not have helped me build up my immune system and fight the virus off. Thanks to all of you, all those immense support and prayers that you have sent me really helped me with my motivation. So another advice that was given to me by a very dear doctor friend was, your threshold for pain should be really low. Like, do not formulate the habit of just facing the pain and letting it go on and prolong in your body. But at the same time, once you get the treatment for that pain done, the capability to actually bear that pain should be high, should be really high. This is where your patients come in. But do not ignore absolutely any pain, any difficulty in your body as of now, and stay calm. Try being healthy. Now is the time to do all of these things that basically we've all ignored for so long in the past. So this was for the treatment part itself. I'd also now like to tell you about the encounter with the doctors and nurses. So these doctors and every medical staff, the nurses, have been working so very hard. I mean, I am literally dying to see normal human faces. All the time, it's just these medical staff with the PPE kits. I see them drenched and literally drowning in sweat. It is clearly not easy to don the PPE and actually work in it for hours and hours after that. So hats off to all the medical staff dealing with it. I am sure the appreciation that they're getting is far less than what they deserve. But that being said, it's a humble request to all the medical staff out there that the patients that come to you are equally scared and nervous. So please do treat them with kindness. I know you're all doing your best. We all acknowledge that. But at the same time, there are instances when sometimes, the doctors ignore you, the nurses ignore you. I do not blame them. I know it's really difficult. Like just the other day, they had put a cannula on my right hand, which is also my working hand, the dominant hand basically. and the doctor, who happens to be an anesthetologist, punctured my vein so bad that literally blood spurted out, and I was just so scared because I was already very weak, or maybe it was the effect of seeing my own blood. I felt dizzy and I fell unconscious for a good couple of seconds. When I was able to open my eyes, I did take a picture of the blood that was all over the bed sheet and my trousers. It was painful and traumatic, to say the least. So try to avoid all of that. I mean, I know you're doing the best. That was one part of the medical negligence. You know, few other instances have been coming up with me as well, with the other patients, but I know doctors and nurses are working all in good faith. But that being said, you know, these are few things that, you know, maybe you could probably pay a little extra caution to. This is from a very humble patient whose own real brother is a surgeon. So I, of all the people, do understand how challenging this job is, especially during these very difficult times. Now, that was about the interaction with the doctors and nurses. Something that I'd like to bring to all of your notice is the sanitization staff, basically the cleaners who mop the floor, who clean your washrooms and toilet seats and all of that. So the staff in this very hospital has not been paid for a good month and a half. Yes, you know, this is very surprising. At least it was shocking to me. And I asked them, how are you guys okay with it? You work, you know, you are in direct encounter with corona positive patients. You're literally putting your life at risk. How are you not, you know, going and talking to the management? So from what I've been told, they're here on contract basis. And hear this out. If these sanitization workers actually are inflicted with corona itself, the hospital has categorically refused for their treatment, and they will be asked to just leave. These are mostly migrant workers coming from some very poor backgrounds in India. I was really shocked and sad and infuriated to hear the condition of these workers. Also, this hospital was shut down for a good 2.5 months or so because the nurses and doctors did not have enough PPE kits or access to face masks and all of that. And then they sat down in the ground floor for protest or something, and the management had to listen to their demands, and rightly so. And that is when the hospital came back in operation. I think even the media had covered it or so, I was told. So yes, the management itself is horrible. The administration is looting tons and tons of money. Where this money is going is anybody's guess. Let me tell you, for 10 days of my admission here, I was asked to pay 5 lakh Indian rupees, which is around 6,551 US dollars and around 24,605 Saudi riyals. So the three currencies that I essentially am used to dealing with, which is why I've named these three currencies for my friends who are watching this video. So imagine the magnitude. For what? Just to be administered these basic anti-malaria medications in a hospital that has pathetic administration, pathetic infrastructure, and such a hopeless state of affairs. Maybe you will understand that when I will, you know, I'll try to make an attempt of showing you the condition of the hospital itself. Probably something that's going to be a little inconvenient for me, but I guess that is one way of telling you how things are going out about here. So I'll just, okay, how do I flip the camera? Okay, so let me, I don't know how to flip the camera. Something is wrong with the setting. Let me just show you how it is. So this is the room itself, and this right here is the hospital bell, which does not work. So this is the call bell for the nurses. I've asked them to fix it. It is still not working. This room at least has has a telephone. The other rooms that I was in before this did not have it. And this is the view. Check this out. There is a lot of pigeon droppings here, which is so unhealthy. I've asked them to clean it. It's not yet done. And let me show you the washroom, which is extremely dirty. I'm sorry I'm having to do that, but you will understand what I'm trying to say. So this is the washroom itself. The sink is literally clogged because of the salty water that is used. I had to ask them to clean it. It becomes clogged in every 2-3 days. Just check out, like everything is clogged. No matter how they clean it, the salty water makes it worse. The washroom itself is very pathetic. The exhaust fan is not working. I had to ask them to install the hand shower. And this is the cupboard. See, look at the noise it makes while opening. You get that? The drawers itself are not opening, no matter how hard I try. The very non-functional cupboard right there. So yes, it is a very sad state of affairs that this particular hospital is in right now. And this is a really expensive room for someone like me who can barely afford such a huge amount of money just for 10 days in a hospital. The TV itself wasn't working when I came. I asked them to fix the setup box for me. They would refuse, saying that, ma'am, the TV is not working for the entire floor, and I had to tell them to, take money from me if that's what you require, but please get the setup box to work. That happened. It took 2-3 days. There's a fridge in this room, which again was not working, and then I asked them to fix it, and they lied to me, saying that the fridge, for the COVID positive patients, they're not going to have access to the fridge because they will infect it, which was such a funny thing because the fridge is literally in a positive patient's room. So how does it matter if it's working or not? Technically it's already infected. So that happened. Few other things I'll tell you about the hospital itself. So when I had checked in, which was a good 12 days back, they made me wait for 6 hours in the isolation ward till the formalities of admission itself were being done. So what they had done is they wouldn't even ask you if you're a cash patient or if you are a patient with access to insurance. All they did is till you pay them that huge amount in cash, they would not let you in. That was one thing. Now after I had my brother who had accompanied me along, and after he had made the payment, they put me in a room in which there was another male patient, which was so shocking. It was a semi-private room, and I did not even check in. I told them I cannot be in a room where there's a male patient, so kindly please shift me, and they did. To a different room where there was another lady patient who was coughing so bad incessantly that for those 2 days that I was in that semi-private ward, I wouldn't sleep. Her husband, who was also positive, both very senior citizens, would come ever so often in the room to check on the wife, who was throwing tantrums and taking medications and the treatment itself. So there was this drift going on between them, and that made my life so bad that on the 3rd day, I literally went to the reception and I shouted. I told them, either you shift me to a private ward right away, or I'm not going to move from this reception, because I cannot be in a room where a patient is coughing so much. I did not have cough initially when I came to the hospital. It was hospital acquired. And they had lied to me about that too. They said that, ma'am, we cannot shift you because we do not have rooms available. And then when I made a fuss about it, because clearly I had made payment for it, so why are you putting me in a semi-private ward? Made absolute zero sense. Within half an hour after creating that commotion in the reception is when I got the room, a private room, surprise. But then again, no surprises there, because this is how sad the state of affairs in the hospital is. Now, when I was shifted to the new room, same thing. The TV wouldn't work. There was no fridge in that room. The drawers and everything was so dirty. I asked them to clean it. I asked them to dust and mop the floor, because everything was like, and I'm pretty sure the room was stinking, because my sense of smell hasn't returned yet, nor my taste palettes. But I'm pretty sure that it was a horribly stinking room. I'm quite sure of that. Well, they cleaned it. I was there in the hospital for a few days. Same drill, had to call them for every single thing to be done. And I'm just going to sit down. I'm a little dizzy and overworked here. So after 2 days, they come and tell me that, ma'am, we've got to shift you from this room and shift you to another floor, because they were to convert that room into another private ward. So now what they had done is they had misplaced my spine TB, the medications that I had bought from home. They had misplaced that, literally. And they wouldn't find it. They, new medicines had to be purchased, and of course, billed yet again, which was so wrong. But then, since I'm literally all alone in the hospital, my brother was home quarantined, and thankfully he was tested negative later. We had suspected that I had got the virus through him, but then since he is negative now, and I haven't left my home in months now, I only wonder how I must have acquired it. Or maybe he did have it at a certain point, and then because his immunity was so strong that he fought it off, and sadly, because of my comorbidities and the pre-existing weak immune system, I acquired it. Anyways, now the third time I was being shifted to a room which was so small and so suffocating, and I told them, I am not going to be checking in here. You have literally made a joke of my stay here. And I was in so much physical pain, so much mental exhaustion. They made me wait for a good 5-6 hours then, and finally shifted me to this room. Surprisingly, the doctor right there, because they had already heard news of me, standing up for basic essential requirements in this hospital, he gave me a choice of 2-3 different rooms on the same floor. That, ma'am, even though it's an isolation ward, you're already wearing your mask, please go and check which room you want to be in. Of them all, this was the better option, which I've shown you the condition of the room. Check. I don't know if you can see the walls itself. They're literally, it's just so infested, and the painting is being chipped off. The almirah is infested with termites. It is disgusting. And I guess this has been a very long video. Before I hang up, end the video, the last few things that I want to tell you is a couple of things that you can buy at home, and a few hospital hacks that, God forbid, if ever required, may help you in a situation. So one would be to buy something called a fingertip pulse oximeter. It looks something like this. So all you have to do is turn it on and put your finger in it, and this will tell you your SpO2 level and your pulse rate, which is essentially what they monitor for COVID patients. Get your own thermometer. This is what I did when I initially came into the hospital, but it would be a good idea to get one at home, God forbid, in cases of emergency. And apart from that, when you're coming into the hospital, because at least this particular hospital did not provide it, so get one of these. It's a steamer that I use for inhalation. Get a electric kettle, which you can make your own tea, or just basic hot water if you want to. Tea bags, disposable glasses, plates, spoon, honey, coffee, a creamer, maybe some sugar, juices, some fruits. It's more or less empty right now. And one more thing that I did was get some eggs. So what you can do is you can boil those eggs in the hot kettle itself, or if the staff is good enough, the kitchen staff, unfortunately this particular kitchen is completely vegetarian, so they wouldn't entertain my request per se to get the eggs boiled, but that really helps you boost up your immune system. So get those eggs, and basic essentials like towels and handkerchiefs and extra clothing. You just never know for how long the stay could be extended, and basic shampoos and conditioners and things like that, your essential toiletries. One sad thing about this hospital is that they don't have good water. They're using the underground water, which is extremely salty, and it's messed up my hair so much, and my skin is literally they're like patches of white salt deposits here and there. It's very unhealthy water that is not supposed to be consumed, but there's just like, I know, I get it, people. Probably I've been ranting on and on so much, but you have to realize that this is not a government hospital. And I know that just getting a hospital is the biggest challenge right now. But that being said, these are basic facilities. I mean, there are so many different rooms. It's a huge hospital. Each floor, like just this floor, has 26 rooms, and from what I understand, there are 6 floors, so if each floor has an average of 26 rooms, just imagine and calculate, with each patient they're making between 3 lakhs to 5 lakhs Indian rupees, depending on which ward you are in, a semi-private or a private one. And just do the maths and you will understand. This is the condition of one hospital. From my understanding, literally it's more or less the same in all the hospitals of Delhi and perhaps possibly all of India. So my question here is, why is affordable healthcare such a humongous, such a challenging task for common citizens like you and me? I mean, technically I'm supposed to be getting a special VIP treatment here, considering that my own real brother is a surgeon who is in constant touch with the doctors, and my uncle who's been a governor of 3 different states in India. He is in touch with the doctors and probably the management itself. So I am supposed to at least be a little better off than the other patients. But imagine if this is my condition. Such is the challenges that I have been facing since the day of my admission. Imagine those patients who are senior citizens, who are children, people who do not know about their rights, people who do not even speak out, what all of them must be going through. So I am ready over here to tell you about all the challenges and issues that I've faced, about the problems that I have gone through, and I am going to be hopefully trying to post the post-discharge, inshallah ta'ala, time and video as well. I cannot wait to go home. I am dying to see human faces and to be at the comfort of my home. 12 long days in a room, in the 4 walls of this room, has been nothing short of challenging and depressing, but at the same time, because I know for a fact that all of you out there are making so many prayers, so many wishes for me, and I'm truly humbled and so grateful for all those duas and prayers. Please keep them coming. Do not stop. I am going to be waiting for those duas. I've been trying to make this very video for 2 days, but those 2 days I've just been going through so much stomachache and diarrhea and vomiting. Today it's a little better, but not yet healed, which is why they're not discharging me. But hopefully, inshallah, that's going to happen soon. And I am here for all your queries, for all your questions, and anything that I can absolutely help any one of you with. I'm going to try my best to be able to do that, and whatever limitations I have, please do feel free to share this video across to anybody that can find it of any use. And I just want to end here by saying that I am here to question my rights as a citizen for affordable healthcare. These are hospitals acting like slaughterhouses, and how many more people have yet to die? How many people have to run from pillar to post to arrange the kind of money that these hospitals require? These blood-sucking, hopeless hospitals require. My issue is not with the doctors, not with the nurses, not with the people treating me. No, I stand by the hospital staff. My issue is with the administration, with the management, and where do I go to for my queries? Do I question a state government, the central government? I mean, I am here to question, and I am aware of my rights. But is there absolutely anybody out there listening to me? Over and out. Thank you very much. God bless you all, and stay healthy, stay positive, and do not forget to make prayers for my quick recovery and healing. God bless you. Thank you. Assalamu alaikum, namaskar, Shat Shri Akal, and Jai Hind.